She was 24 years old when her name became a whisper of fear among German soldiers. A young woman, calm as winter frost, who turned the tide of battle not with tanks or bombs, but with a single bullet at a time. Her name was Lyudmila Pavlichenko, and she would be remembered by history as Lady Death. In the chaos of World War II, when nations bled and empires fell, Pavlichenko stood alone on the battlefield, patient, silent, and precise. She was not a symbol, not propaganda. She was a soldier, a sniper, and her war was personal. Lyudmila was born in 1916 in a small town near Kyiv, then part of the Soviet Union. Her father was an industrial worker, a man of few words but strong principles. Her mother, a school teacher, believed in education and discipline. Lyudmila was an ambitious girl, competitive, stubborn, and hungry to prove herself. When she was 14, she overheard a boy bragging about his marksmanship. Insulted by his arrogance, Lyudmila borrowed her father's rifle and went to the range. Her hands trembled the first time she held the weapon, but when she pulled the trigger, the bullet struck the target dead center. It was the beginning of an obsession, not with killing, but with perfection. By the time she entered Kyiv University, Lyudmila was already a skilled sharpshooter. She studied history, dreamed of becoming a scholar, not a soldier. But the world was changing, and history was no longer written in books, it was written in blood. When Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, the call to defend the motherland echoed across every town and city. Lyudmila, now 25, didn't hesitate. She left her studies and volunteered for the Red Army. At first, the recruitment officer laughed. "Women are not sent to the front lines," he said. "We can give you a nurse's uniform." Lyudmila laid her sharpshooting certificate on the table. "I'm not here to bandage soldiers," she replied quietly. "I'm here to fight." Her determination broke through prejudice. She was accepted, not as a nurse, but as a sniper in the 25th Rifle Division. Her first mission came in the defense of Odessa. The summer air was thick with smoke and the stench of war. Lyudmila's hand shook slightly as she climbed to her position overlooking the battlefield. She was alone, hidden among the ruins, the rifle heavy in her grip. She saw her first enemy, a German scout moving cautiously through the rubble. Her heart pounded. She remembered the instructor's words, "Breathe. Don't think of him as a man. Think of him as a target." She exhaled slowly and squeezed the trigger. The man fell. In that moment, Lyudmila's life changed forever. War had transformed her from a historian into a weapon. Her talent was undeniable. Within weeks, she had dozens of confirmed kills. Her patience, her precision, they made her deadly. The Germans began to notice. They started calling her Die Russische Teufelin, the Russian she-devil. But it wasn't fame she sought, it was focus. Each time she pulled the trigger, she thought of her homeland, her fallen comrades, her mother's face. By the time Odessa was evacuated, Lyudmila had recorded 187 confirmed kills. When her division was redeployed to Sevastopol, she carried with her not only her rifle, but the growing legend of Lady Death. Sevastopol, a city turned fortress, surrounded by sea and flame. The year was 1942, and the German army had unleashed hell upon the Crimean Peninsula. For 8 months, Lyudmila fought from the cliffs, the trenches, the shattered walls of buildings that no longer had names. She became a ghost of the battlefield, always unseen, always watching. The soldiers around her drew strength from her calm. If Pavlichenko is with us, they would say, we cannot lose. Her spotter, Leonid Kutsenko, once described her like this. She would lie still for hours, not moving, not blinking. And then one shot, one life ended, and she would whisper, that one was for Odessa. But war does not spare even the strongest. During one mission, an enemy shell exploded near her position. Metal fragments tore into her face. Bleeding and half-conscious, she refused evacuation until her comrades dragged her away by force. Even in the hospital, her first words were, how many positions did they lose while I was gone? She would recover, and she would return to fight again. By the time Sevastopol finally fell to the Germans, Lyudmila Pavlichenko had 309 confirmed kills, including 36 enemy snipers. Her name had become a legend whispered in trenches and across radio waves. To the Soviets, she was a hero. To the Germans, she was death itself. In 1942, the Soviet government decided to withdraw her from the front. She was too valuable to risk. Reluctantly, she obeyed. Her war on the battlefield was over, but another kind of war was about to begin. She was sent on a goodwill tour to the United States. The first Soviet soldier ever invited to the White House. There she met President Franklin D. Roosevelt and his wife, Eleanor. The Americans were fascinated. A young woman with 309 confirmed kills, standing calmly, speaking through an interpreter, her uniform still marked by battle. Reporters swarmed her. One asked her what kind of makeup she used in battle. Another asked if she wore nail polish. Lyudmila's answer was sharp. I wear the uniform of my country. I carry a rifle. I have killed hundreds of fascists. Do you think that deserves lipstick? The crowd erupted in applause. Even in peacetime, she fought her battles, this time against ignorance. Her friendship with Eleanor Roosevelt became one of mutual respect. The First Lady admired Lyudmila's strength and sincerity. They traveled together across America, urging support for the Allied war effort. For many Americans, Pavlichenko was the first real face of the Soviet people, not an enemy, but a comrade in arms. When she returned to the Soviet Union, the war was nearing its end. She trained new generations of snipers, passing down her experience, her calm, her deadly patience. But the years after victory were not kind. Like many veterans, she carried the weight of memory. The smell of gunpowder, the silence after the shot, the faces of the men she killed. She earned medals, honors, songs written in her name. But at night she would wake in cold sweat, hearing the echo of distant rifles. She never married. She never returned to her studies. Instead, she wrote, she lectured, she lived quietly, never seeking fame. When asked about her kills, she once said, I did my duty, nothing more. War taught me that every life taken leaves a shadow, even when it is necessary. Lyudmila Pavlichenko died in 1974 at the age of 58. At her funeral, thousands of soldiers and civilians came to pay their respects. Her coffin was draped in the flag of the Soviet Union. On it lay her rifle, the same weapon she had carried through Odessa and Sevastopol. Her legacy endures not just as the greatest female sniper in history, but as a symbol of quiet strength. She was proof that courage has no gender, that resolve can rise from the most unexpected hearts. Today, her name lives on in museums, in books, in the whispered tales of snipers who study her methods. But perhaps her truest legacy lies in her words, written once in a letter near the end of the war. I am not proud of the number, I am proud that I defended my land. If my story is remembered, let it not be for how many I killed, but for why I stood my ground. Lyudmila Pavlichenko, the Lady Death of Sevastopol, the woman who looked through a scope and saw not war, but the price of peace.